We're going to be talking about why we chose to give a session on this subject at all, some steps that you can take to follow that might aid in your thinking about how to promote within your organization, some resources and tools that you can leverage, and then hopefully allow time for a little Q&A. Apologies for the technical difficulties. You know, I did a poll of our own sales team about promoting cloud inside your own organization, and they said most of the time the people that they're speaking with are already interested in cloud, but they have to sell their colleagues on the idea or overcome objections internally. So we know that's quite a common situation. On the good side, these are some slides repeating from this morning. Cloud is being driven from very top levels as an initiative. So that's in your favor. And also in your favor is the fact that more and more companies are accelerating their plans to adopt cloud. So all that stuff's good, but increasingly we find that people, as they get engaged in the process of looking at RightScale, considering RightScale, and wanting to deploy it, they face this kind of chasm where they're moving between early adopters who are quite enthusiastic about technology and willing to deal with some issues to a bigger majority that's driven by practicality and considerations like that, and they really need help messaging and demonstrating that fact. And of course, most of us, I like this next graphic, most of us have come across this guy. He's the VP of No. And it's from a company called Explanations. I love these cartoons. And of course, that job is, the job of the VP of No is to turn down everything that you propose. And you'll notice he's got a handy paper there with pre-printed No on it. And what we really want to talk to is the VP of Go. You'll notice he's got Go there, and the safe with all the money is open in back to fund your initiative. So this is the kind of thing that we're actually facing. And when we discuss this internally at RightScale and work with our own account management teams, we promote something called consultative selling. It's not the hard sell. It's not pushing things on people that they don't want. It's about understanding the needs of folks that you're working with and helping to create solutions that address those needs. And these were some rules, you know, that we've come up with, and they're not unique to RightScale, but they're just truisms out there. And the fact is, if you're promoting cloud in your organization, in a way, you're in the position of a salesperson. You're selling, so to speak. And we know from long studies of sales, people buy from people whom they think understand their needs. They buy for solutions as opposed to problems. They don't buy technology or features. They buy solutions to problems they have. And they buy from companies that they trust, companies that appear to be credible to them. So these are 5 steps that I'd like to take you through for your consideration. We're happy to provide these slides afterwards if they're of help. How you can help understand problems and needs inside your organization, get some experience with RightScale, with cloud computing, help to demonstrate solutions. That's probably the biggest section of the talk. Provide references and how to go about proposing a project. So first of all, in terms of understanding needs, across, again, thousands and thousands of prospects and customer contacts, over time we've seen that interest in cloud computing pretty much divides down to 2 areas that people are looking to improve. One is agility, and that's around things like access to resources more quickly than in the past, reducing requisition times, being able to operate, to spend out of your operating budget as opposed to the capital expenditure budget, a lot higher initial spends, and the resistance that you might encounter from the need for transient use of a more permanent resource, like buying a server for somebody who needs to do some testing for 2 or 3 weeks. It's a tough sell inside an organization. So folks are looking for this kind of agility in infrastructure, and they're looking to save money. They're looking to improve their cost-benefit ratio, both in terms of the hard dollars spent, but also in terms of the benefits that it can bring to your team in terms of opportunity cost and focus. At the end of the day, you're going to differentiate your company not on how effectively your team racks servers. Virtually no business is going to differentiate that way. You're going to differentiate based on your special contribution based on what your company really does, not the infrastructure behind it. So, an important thing to remember is to start by asking questions. So make sure you understand whoever the decision makers are in your organization, what are their top priorities and concerns, and factor those in. What are potential objections? And often you hear about, the most common ones are around security, reliability, latency, and performance. And the most common objections are not necessarily the most well-grounded. They don't necessarily have a relationship with real concerns in the real world. They may. But we're talking about objections, so we're talking about psychology. People worry about security in the cloud. It's probably the most common thing that's brought up. Is it secure? Never mind the fact that Amazon's data centers are probably 10x more secure than the average enterprise data center. That's maybe a fact of life, but psychologically, you've got people who are used to having location-based security. If the server's right there, I can trust it, I know that it's there, etc. So make sure you understand what the potential objections are and dig down into those so you figure out what really is at the core. Secondly, it's always best to speak from experience and to get a little bit of traction and experience with cloud usage. It's pretty easy to do in the cloud because it's a pay-as-you-go system. So I would start by making sure you understand the basics around the architecture and the lay of the land. You know what EC2 is and EBS and S3, what Rackspace offers, what are the private cloud solutions, and maybe some baseline definitions. Maybe a lot of this stuff is obvious to you all, but there's an organization, National Institute of Standards, that has put out a definition of infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. And it's still the fact today that lots of organizations toss around the word cloud in a very broad, loose way. Cloud is Salesforce.com, cloud is SuccessFactors and any SaaS package, and it's also running servers at Amazon. So you need to be able to do some simple classifications so that you can divide out what you're talking about in terms of which area of cloud you want to use. At RightScale, we've really taken a focus on education-based marketing. It means we try to provide a lot of valuable content, and I won't have a chance today to go through all chapter and verse of all the materials that we provide, but I'll go over some of it. But keep in mind that what you can get just on our website alone and through our staff is a wealth of factual material about usage of cloud. I'll go over that in a minute. We have a free developer edition. So for the matter of probably skipping a few lunches, you can actually launch servers in Amazon using free RightScale and play with it and actually start to get experience. You can also introduce that internally. And we have companies, running actually dozens and dozens of servers on the free edition. Of course, we wish they might consider upgrading someday, but it's part of how we market, and what we offer is there is a free edition, and that's just like the open source world. Some people use open source and never pay for it, and that's part of the bargain of one way of gaining exposure and distribution. And finally, the fact that you're here is a great sign. There's a lot of valuable content being discussed today. Take a look at the other breakout sessions. There's how to build a private cloud, how to get zero to cloud in 2 hours, a bunch of partner sessions, a session on security if you're interested in that. So these events are also very valuable that way. Demonstrating solutions. So here we're back to this education-based content. We have a whole series of webinars. There's about one every 2 weeks now happening at RightScale on a variety of subjects ranging from cloud basics, kind of cloud 101, to security, to very vertical solutions like grid, how to do grid processing in the cloud, online gaming in the cloud, development and test. And these webinars are recorded. and they're available for free up on the website. So check those out. Again, a collection of white papers ranging from total cost of ownership benefit, grid processing, dev and test. It's another tool that you can use. We have an online wiki, which is a knowledge base essentially, with everything from how to use the system, very hands-on dashboard stuff, to diagrams involving how to create batch processing on the grid framework. We have a number of product briefs up on the website, and you can contact us to get slideware like this, that you can use and distribute inside your company. We offer weekly free training calls for people who've already signed up for RightScale. If you think that might be helpful, let us know, and you're welcome to attend those. We also have a TCO calculator that I mentioned earlier this morning, and in a few minutes when I finish, I'm going to let Chris dive into that. It's around the cost side and show you what's behind that tool, how you can use that to calculate the actual hard dollar savings. That's a very compelling way to present an alternative. Obviously, all of us in these days anyway are looking to save money, so very compelling tool to use. Live conference calls with our account managers, live demos, very convincing. Just dive into the interface and show people what it's like to launch a server, how fast that happens, what treating infrastructure as collections of systems instead of individual servers, a layer up, how powerful that is. And then finally, we do have account managers available that you can contact and describe what you're trying to do. And their whole job is to understand problem sets and help, I guess, educate and guide whether RightScale and the way we approach cloud is an appropriate solution. It isn't always, and we'll tell you that if it isn't. As you're going through this question of how to demonstrate solutions, ask yourself what type of information your colleagues prefer to review and in what venue they're going to be presenting it. Is it a board meeting? Is it something that needs to be passed around on paper, etc.? I think focusing the materials on the specific problems at hand, no one likes to get deluged with generalistic material. They like very focused material, and there's so much of it at RightScale that you want to pick what's relevant. I wanted to give one example of one particular scenario and what happened. We were actually, my colleague Josh Frazier, who runs sales and biz dev here, was at an event overseas presenting a solution that we did jointly with IBM. And he did a live demo accessing a pre-configured deployment. It was an IBM middleware stack with WebSphere and DB2. And he made a little tweak to it and relaunched it. And so, what you're showing there with just a few clicks, if you take a step back, it's around all the promise of cloud, around agility, how you can change something and then relaunch. We heard customers speak about that today, the web filings folks, and rapid provisioning. And what by now we take for granted as, oh yeah, well that's how the cloud works. But in that room, chins were dropping because this was a process that was very, very painful previously for the IBM reps to have to go and do. And so you shouldn't forget, take a step back, and sometimes the simplest demonstrations really can encapsulate the kind of aha moment and get people on the road to understanding some of the benefit of true agility in the cloud. References, there's almost nothing stronger. It's come to light that probably the single most compelling question you can ask as a survey question of your customers that indicates future growth for your company is, would you recommend us to a friend or colleague? And what that essentially is that's a reference relationship where somebody puts their own credibility on the line saying, yes, this works for me, I like it, I'd suggest you look at it. That's really the same process that's involved here. These are just a smattering of logos for existing RightScale customers, but we have a wealth of these, some of them written up in case studies, and we'd be happy to share that with you. Nothing speaks louder than, don't listen to me, listen to somebody who's already using that. Finally, before we switch to the in-depth TCO calculator demo, propose a project. And keep in mind that cloud is not a black and white, all or nothing kind of proposition where cloud has to be perfect for every application scenario and workload, or it's not at all. It's very much a question of picking the early use cases that are easy. We're big fans of low-hanging fruit, I put here. Don't fight against the most security sensitive, most complicated legacy app. Pick the easy stuff, and that's what we've been focusing on for the beginning years. The web-facing properties, the dev and test, the R&D uses, and on, the grid and batch processing where people are already used to that concept. Pick pilot projects that are easy to consume, easy to adopt, and define them in sort of consumable chunks. So one of our sales guys said, don't boil the ocean. Don't try and take on something so huge that it's going to take forever to discuss it, to approve it, etc. Pick a very easy to define project where the success is clear, and start with that and then build from there. We see every day, the graph I showed earlier of increasing consumption, we see every day how early consumption in the cloud leads to more and more as companies gain trust, gain experience, and see what's working.